So iPadOS 15 has been announced at WWDC. What do we think? Let's get into it. Now, if you're new around here, I'm Aaron Ross. I am a photographer based out of Chicago, and I mainly use my iPad Pro as my photo editing device. That's all I use. I don't even have Lightroom on my laptop anymore. It's all iPad, every day, all day. It's what I use. Now, I am currently using the 2018 12.9 inch with 256 gigs. Now that means I have not used the M1 iPad Pro from 2021 with the Thunderbolt port or the M1 chip. Now, those are both some powerful upgrades, and I know we were hoping for some announcements that would take advantage of that. But before we get into that, make sure and subscribe because I have more content coming your way in terms of photography and iPad content, and particularly I'm working on a NAS storage solution for all of my photo and video files, and I'll be sharing those details with you as I use that and access that from my iPad. So make sure and have the bell on so you get notified when that video comes out. Now, while there were a lot of updates shared on iOS and a new operating system for macOS being Monterey, I want to focus in on iPadOS as a photographer. I also consider things from a videographer perspective since I do this YouTube channel here and I edit all of these videos on the iPad using LumaFusion. So I tried to record live reaction during the keynote, and one, I messed up the framing, and two, I didn't get too excited about much during the moment. Here we go, iPadOS. All right, this is what I'm here for. Twiddling my thumbs for the photo and video stuff. So now I'm here a couple days later. Now I've thought about some things and want to share my thoughts. The biggest thing that I'm excited about is universal control. Now that's a little interesting because it's really designed for people who have the iPad and a Mac computer and being able to use both together. What I think Apple is trying to do is allow you to use the device for what it's best designed for, and then be able to use those together to be able to make the best ecosystem you possibly can. So if you want to design something and paint something and illustrate something on the iPad using that touchscreen and the pencil, you can then move that over to the Mac and put that into a Pro app that everybody's wanting on the iPad. You can still use those Pro apps, you can integrate it with the iPad, and that's going to be an interesting future. It does not necessarily benefit those of us that are trying to use the iPad as our sole device, but it is a step forward in those integrations in the Apple ecosystem that I am interested in the future of. Now, honestly, that's probably the only thing that I got truly excited about on the iPadOS updates. There are really no dedicated updates for photo or video production work. Now, there's updates to the Photos app in terms of memories and things like that, but there's nothing in terms of editing or production on the iPad. Taking advantage of some of the M1 power, it's not using the Thunderbolt port to enable full external display. It just wasn't there. What we got was quick notes, widgets being able to be placed anywhere on the home screen as opposed to just in the Today view or left-hand rail, and a couple of tweaks to multitasking. It didn't really change how multitasking works, just really how you navigate it and get it set up. And it's interesting because I know a couple of years ago we heard from Adobe at one of these conferences that they were bringing full Photoshop to the iPad, and that is still not true. There is Photoshop on the iPad, but it is still very limited. And then LumaFusion, who has the best video editing app for iPads, they've made some announcements that they're working on some things, but none of that was shared here. I'm sure a lot of that's designed to take advantage of the new power of the M1 chip, but again, was not shared here at the developers conference. Now, what this does is it puts the responsibility back on the app developers. Now, obviously, this is a developers conference, so that makes sense that they're providing them tools to be able to do their jobs better. This means that we are looking to Adobe to make updates to Photoshop and Lightroom, Darkroom to figure out how they can take advantage of some of these new features in the developer tools, and LumaFusion to figure out what they can do to make LumaFusion even more of a pro app and closer to things like Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro. And I trust those companies to do that eventually. I hope that it is sooner rather than later. I know Darkroom continues to innovate and push out features all the time, but to me, this left me thinking, I don't need to upgrade. I have an iPad Pro from 2018. It's over 3 years old at this point, and continues to be able to do everything that the current model can do. There were no features that are going to be limited to the M1 MacBook that I won't be able to access as a 2018 model user. There's obviously a couple of little things that might be noticeable in terms of the speed of apps or file transfers using the new Thunderbolt port, and I'm sure nobody's really using the LiDAR camera on the new ones, but that's really it. I have not experienced any sort of slowdown or issues with my current model, and so I know I'm not going to be making an upgrade unless we get a iPadOS 15.5 that just changes the game and really relies on everything that the new M1 iPad Pros can offer, but that's just not what we have right now. Now, if things change over the summer through the beta season before the public release, I will make sure and share any updates here. So let me know down in the comments if there are features that you're missing out on that I didn't mention or that I missed that you're excited about. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go make some photos. I hope you do too.